At some point in every action star's life, there comes a terrible moment of clarity. The cameras stop rolling, the explosions die down, the protein shake settles, and somewhere deep inside their carefully oiled chest they whisper, "Wait, do I actually have range?" Today's episode is about the exact opposite of that. Today's episode is about the moment an actor finally finds out they didn't have range, but accidentally did one time and the universe didn't know what to do with it. Because we need to talk about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. This is a man who has been playing the same character for so long that I'm convinced if you pause any of his movies and walk away, he'll still be standing there in your living room, eyebrow cocked, waiting for you to hit play again. This is a man whose filmography looks less like a career and more like a corporate brand deck. Jungle guy in tan shirt city, guy in tan shirt, jungle guy in slightly different tan shirt, single dad in tight tan shirt, who is emotionally closed off but good with kids. And every time he brings the same toolkit. The eyebrow, the smolder, the "I'm going to be charming but safe because my box office is 4 quadrants and a Funko Pop line." Let's be honest, The Rock doesn't usually play characters. He plays Dwayne Johnson in different tax brackets. He is the cinematic equivalent of pre-workout. Loud, predictable, vaguely citrus flavored, and if you consume too much in one sitting, your heart rate will spike and you may question your life choices. For the last decade, his agent has basically been handing him scripts that say, "X'd," somewhere that can be turned into a theme park. Day Dwayne Johnson runs away from something large and CGI, says a quip, saves a kid, flexes, franchises ensue. But once, just once, Hollywood accidentally put all that muscle, smile, and brand safety into a movie that wasn't about punching earthquakes or suplexing giant monkeys. Once, they gave him a role that required him to be scared, vulnerable, morally compromised, and, worst of all, a normal dad in a high-visibility vest. And in that cursed little 2013 thriller called Snitch, Dwayne Johnson did something unthinkable. He acted. Not wink at the camera acting. Not "I'm sad, but also shredded, please buy my energy drink" acting. I mean, real, quiet. "Oh no, this is uncomfortable because I feel things for the guy from Rampage" acting. So today, we're going deep. We're looking at how a movie about a dad who snitches for the DEA somehow became Dwayne Johnson's one shockingly soulful role. The moment he accidentally got within touching distance of genuine range, before immediately running back to the gym and signing a contract that says he can't lose a fight unless the other guy is a skyscraper. Strap in, because this is the story of when The Rock stopped smelling what he was cooking and started smelling his own feelings. Before we talk about Snitch, we have to understand the creature known as modern Rock. The Rock started as a wrestler, obviously. Back then he was already an actor, just an actor whose stage was 20x20 and involved fewer green screens and more folding chairs. He was perfect, loud catchphrases, cartoon-level charisma, eyebrow insured for more money than your car. Then he hit Hollywood. Early Dwayne was kind of interesting. You had The Rundown, where he was allowed to be frustrated and funny. You had Walking Tall, where he beat people with a 2x4 and somehow made that look like a character choice. There were flashes, little moments where you could see Beck or Chris Vaughn as actual humans, not just gym memberships with dialogue. But then the machine kicked in. Fast and Furious came calling. Family. Corona. Billion-dollar box office. Suddenly, The Rock wasn't just an actor. He was a franchise management strategy. His roles started coming with legal terms. He can't be too weak. He can't lose too badly. He can't be the joke. He tells the joke. His characters became bulletproof, emotionally and physically. You don't cry when you're a global brand. You raise one eyebrow and punch the problem through a wall. So how in the world did we get Snitch? Snitch is the kind of movie you'd expect to see playing at 1:30 a.m. on cable between an insurance commercial and a pastor selling miracle water. The premise is simple and very American. A teenage boy makes one stupid decision. The war on drugs says, "Congrats, you're going to prison forever." His dad, who runs a trucking company and normally solves problems by lifting heavy objects, is suddenly powerless. And that dad is Dwayne Johnson. Except not the Dwayne Johnson you know. No spray-on tan, no jungle, no slow-motion heroic walk through falling debris. He's just John Matthews, suburban warehouse guy, divorced dad, remarried, wearing jeans that actually fit and flannel that looks like it's seen a washing machine. The first time you see him, you almost don't recognize him. He looks small. Now, small is relative. The man still looks like his biceps have their own Netflix specials, but the movie treats him as small. The camera doesn't worship him. It doesn't shoot up from the floor like he's Mount Olympus in a Henley. It just observes. That's your first clue this is not a normal rock vehicle. In a normal rock movie, the first act is, here's how cool, competent, and low-key superhuman this guy is before things go wrong. In Snitch, the first act is, here's a dad whose son doesn't return his calls and whose biggest problem is warehouse logistics before the FBI ruins his entire life. When his son Jason gets arrested in a drug sting and faces a mandatory minimum sentence, that should come with a therapist just reading you the Constitution and crying. John does what every rock character usually does. He marches in to fix it, except this time, he can't. There is nothing to punch. He goes to the prosecutor, Susan Sarandon, doing her best, I am tired of this country but still here face. And she basically tells him, yeah, unless your son snitches on people he doesn't know, he's done. Watching The Rock here, there is nothing you can do is weirdly painful. Because normally the laws of physics bend before that sentence makes it out of someone's mouth. Here, Dwayne plays it small. His face tightens, his eyes drop. He doesn't do the big, theatrical, no. He just absorbs it, like a regular human absorbing the fact that the system doesn't care about his dad energy or his bench press numbers. That's the first genuinely soulful note, helplessness. And he sells it. You can see John silently recalculating his entire sense of self. All that time building a business, a body, a life, and none of it protects his kid. The Rock, for once, isn't asking, how do I save the world? He's asking, how do I save one stupid boy who made one stupid choice? And there's no montage for that. Because Snitch is based on real cooperation laws, the plot is basically, if his son won't snitch, somebody has to. So John does the unthinkable for a rock character. He volunteers to snitch on himself. He walks into the DEA's office and essentially says, hi, I run trucks. What if I use them to infiltrate cartel operations for you, so you'll take a few years off my son's sentence? This is where the performance quietly levels up. Normally, Dwayne's characters never admit they're out of their depth. Here, John walks into a room full of agents and prosecutors looking like he doesn't belong, and he lets you feel it. He stands just a little too stiffly. His voice is too polite, too controlled, like he's holding panic behind his teeth. He's not charming. He's negotiating from a place of raw, terrified dad energy. And The Rock plays him like a guy who is very aware he's not the smartest person in the room, which, for someone whose entire career is built on being the alpha in every scene, is kind of wild. They tell him no, at first. They brush him off. He's just some civilian with a fleet of trucks and a misplaced sense of responsibility. But he keeps coming back, not with witty comebacks or a gun. He keeps coming back with persistence. That's where the soulful stuff creeps in again. He's not stubborn because he's macho. He's stubborn because he can't live with not trying. In a weaker script, this would be cheesy. In Snitch, it's almost pathetic on purpose. You watch this huge man humiliate himself, beg bureaucrats, basically offer his life in exchange for the system going just a tiny bit easier on his kid. And he still only gets a maybe. That's not action hero territory. That's tragedy. And somehow, Dwayne Johnson is holding it together with a performance that mostly lives in his posture and voice, which is not a sentence I ever expected to write. Let's talk about the prison visit scenes, because this is where Dwayne's shockingly soulful badge really gets stamped. Every rock fan has seen the tough guy visit someone behind glass scene at least 20 times. Usually he's the one inside, smirking, saying, I'll be out soon, because contracts. In Snitch, he's the dad on the outside. Jason, his son, is bruised, scared, way too small for the orange jumpsuit. He's clearly getting the kind of prison treatment they don't put in the brochure. John sits down and tries to do the dad thing. He starts with, "I'm going to fix this," because that's his programming. He's a provider, a builder, the man who gets it done. And then the conversation turns, and he can't promise that anymore. This is the crucial moment. The Rock lets his voice crack without going full melodrama. He doesn't deliver a rousing speech about overcoming adversity. He doesn't get angry. He does something much harder. He fails in front of his son. You see it in his eyes when Jason asks, basically, "Are you sure?" And John, this giant of a man, has to make a choice. Does he lie and say, "Yes, I'll get you out"? Or does he admit, "I don't know"? Dwayne plays that hesitation with a subtlety I promise you studios have never rewarded him for again. His mouth opens like he's about to say the Rock line. Then he just doesn't. He swallows. He looks down. He tells the truth, that he's trying, that it might not work, that he's sorry. It's painfully human. There's no inspirational music swell. The scene doesn't end with a vow to burn the world down. It ends with a father and son both nearly breaking, and neither of them able to fully comfort the other. That's range. You know, the thing the actor finally finds out they didn't have, only to accidentally display. It like this, before going right back to quipping at Kevin Hart in the jungle. Another reason Snitch works as Rock's soulful outlier is that it never lets John be the alpha. Normally, casting Dwayne Johnson means every other man in the frame is instantly demoted to supporting muscle tissue. But here, he spends most of his runtime next to people who outclass him in context. John Bernthal's ex-con driver, who actually understands the criminal world, the cartel guys, who have all the power and all the guns, the DEA, who can ruin his life with a line of paperwork. John looks large, but powerless, and the movie leans into that. Watch how he behaves around Bernthal's character, Daniel. John needs Daniel's access. Daniel needs John's job to feed his own family and stay clean. In a normal Rock story, John would stride in, impress Daniel with a feat of strength, and earn his respect through sheer masculine aura. In Snitch, John is awkward. He offers work. He tries to be friendly. He clearly doesn't understand how close to the line he's pushing this man. There are scenes where Bernthal is doing this incredible low-key, "I'm one bad day away from ruining my life again" acting, and Johnson is just standing there, listening, taking it in. He doesn't try to out-act him. He doesn't try to out-intimidate him. He lets his character be out of his depth in someone else's world. That's humility, both for John and, weirdly, for Dwayne as a performer. Because make no mistake, The Rock can alpha his way through a drama if he wants. One eyebrow flare and the movie bends around him. But here, he doesn't. He plays John as a man whose size is irrelevant, whose money doesn't protect him, whose only real asset is his willingness to suffer for his kid. That's the soulful spine of the performance. John Matthews is not special. He's not chosen. He's not blessed with plot armor. He's just a desperate dad who volunteers for a game. He does not understand. And every second, you can see him realizing it was a mistake, but never backing out. We do eventually get to the action. This is still a Dwayne Johnson movie, not an A24 whisperfest. There's a sequence near the end where John uses his big rig to drive straight into the jaws of a cartel operation. Now, in modern Rock cinema, this would be the moment where the score goes heroic, the camera swoops in, and he delivers at least one line about taking out the trash, or time to finish this. In Snitch, it plays more like a filmed panic attack. He's sweating. His hands are shaking on the wheel. He is not cruising in control. He is barreling forward because he has to, not because he's fearless. The bullets start hitting the cab. Glass shatters. He flinches a lot. He's not John Wick laughing at physics. He's a logistics guy in way over his head, driving his way through a situation he barely grasped on paper, let alone in live fire. The stunt work is cool, but the emotional framing is different. This isn't watch the hero show off. This is watch a terrified father commit to something suicidal because the alternative is letting his kid rot. You feel it in the way Dwayne plays it. He doesn't smirk when he runs guys off the road. He looks shocked he's still alive. Even when he does something badass, the movie doesn't pause to tell you how cool it is. It treats it as desperate improvisation by a man whose life insurance premiums are about to skyrocket. And underneath every loud moment is the quiet truth the performance never forgets. John doesn't want to be here. He doesn't like violence. He's not chasing redemption or glory. He's just trying to survive long enough to buy his son a shorter sentence. That mundanity, that smallness of goal, is what makes it surprisingly moving. We're not saving the world. We're saving one kid. And the Rock Mr. biggest movie star on earth, Mr. My Biceps have their own Twitter manages to make himself small enough for that story to work, which, ironically, is the biggest flex he's ever done as an actor. So what did we learn from Snitch? We learned that if you strip away the white tank tops, the franchise contracts, and the memeable smolder, Dwayne Johnson can actually do. Fear, shame, helplessness, quiet determination, and morally gray desperation. All without losing the fundamental decency that makes people like him in the first place. He has one shockingly soulful role. It's right there on tape. Undeniable. You'd think Hollywood would see Snitch and go, oh, maybe we can give him more grounded, grown-up dramas. Maybe he could have a late career pivot into serious acting. Become our new, I don't know, action-flavored everyman like a modern Steve McQueen with better gym lighting. Instead, Hollywood looked at Snitch and said, cool, now what if he fights a skyscraper with one leg? And, listen, I get it. Giant paychecks, international markets. Kids love it when a man picks up a helicopter with just his traps. But there's a tiny, evil film nerd part of me that watches Snitch and thinks, man, this guy could have had a whole different path. A path where he doesn't need to be invincible, where his characters are allowed to fail, where his size is a burden, not a superpower. A path where The Rock finally finds out he didn't have range is actually a lie, because secretly, he did. He just only used it once. So, we've just watched Dwayne, the franchise Johnson, accidentally fall face first into an actual performance in Snitch, like a gym bro tripping over a stray emotion and pretending it was part of his workout. You'd think that would be the turning point. The moment the actor finally finds out they didn't have range, and then sees evidence that they maybe, possibly, kinda do. But The Rock is a complicated creature. He didn't just wake up one day and go, from now on, I will only be a soulful, grounded character actor who drives trucks and cries in prison visiting rooms. No, he did what any rational multi-million-dollar brand would do. He briefly flirted with range, put it back in the box, and went right back to being built like a refrigerator that sells movie tickets. Still, Snitch isn't the only time the universe glitched. There are other projects where he did something more than flex and smolder, where the muscles took a back seat, okay, a middle seat, to something resembling humanity. So let's keep going. Before the tan shirts, before the Fast and Furious family picnics, before he started arguing with Vin Diesel via Instagram captions, there was The Rundown, 2003. If Snitch is his one shockingly soulful role, The Rundown is his, oh wow, he could have been a fun, weird character guy role. He plays Beck, a bounty hunter, retrieval specialist, walking liability waiver with a personal code and the patience of a babysitter on her last 5 minutes of shift. On the page, Beck is simple. He wants out of the business, he wants to open a restaurant, and he doesn't like using guns. On the screen, he's basically The Rock's last known sighting of comedic frustration, physical vulnerability, and the ability to look actually annoyed rather than, the audience will love this, brother, the opening. Don't call it a flex. The movie literally opens with Beck walking into a club to collect a debt from a football player built like a forklift. Old, modern Rock would stride in like the human personification of an insurance premium and flatten the whole room in 7 seconds. Rundown Rock? He negotiates. He tries to leave. He's visibly reluctant. You can see Beck doing the mental math. How many ligaments am I about to blow out on this job that's not even worth the money? When the inevitable brawl happens, he wins. But he doesn't look thrilled about it. He looks tired, annoyed, like a man who just wanted to go home and read about sauces. This is a flavor of Rock we lost, not I love violence, but I'm good at it, and I kinda hate that I'm good at it. Enter Sean William Scott, Beck versus Rock. Chaos Beck is sent to retrieve Travis, Cian, William Scott, a loudmouth idiot, son of a mobster hiding in a South American jungle. And here's where Dwayne actually shows some comedy chops. Not wink-wink sitcom jokes, but real timing. Every time Travis tries to stall, lie, or escape, Beck just gets more and more done with existence. The comedy isn't in Rock mugging for the camera, it's in the exhausted sighs, the muttered threats, the very real "I am 3 seconds away from turning this into a headline" energy. He reacts like an actual human, not a meme machine. He gets beat up. Like, a lot. Here's the big one. Beck gets wrecked. He gets tossed around by local rebels. He gets humiliated, tied up, dragged, thrown through jungle hell. And the movie lets those hits land. In modern Rock movies, pain is just a brief inconvenience between quips and perfectly lit close-ups. In The Rundown, pain is the price of his job. He stumbles, he limps, he whines. There's even a whole sequence with hallucinogenic fruit where The Rock is flopping around like a distressed sofa, and you realize, oh, this guy can actually do physical comedy. He doesn't have to be cool all the time. The most dangerous thing that ever happened to his career was studios figuring out he prints money by playing invincible. Because in The Rundown, he's not invincible. He's a big, grumpy guy who keeps getting smacked by the plot and somehow refuses to stay down. Imagine that trajectory. He could have been the big, funny, ex-wrestler who's willing to look stupid, take hits, and still have heart. Instead, we got the guy who never loses a fight per his contract. We were robbed. Fast forward to 2016. By now, The Rock has fully evolved into Brand Johnson, leader of franchises, destroyer of box office, wearer of outrageously tight t-shirts. So when Central Intelligence shows up, it looks like another quick cash grab buddy comedy with Kevin Hart doing cardio and Dwayne Johnson doing triceps. And then, something strange happens. They let Dwayne play a delusional, emotionally damaged, aggressively nice weirdo. Fat Robbie and the trauma glow-up. We start with a high school flashback. Fat Robbie, an overweight, bullied kid, gets humiliated in front of the whole school. 20 years later, that kid is now Bob Stone, CIA agent, built like a superhero, wearing a unicorn t-shirt and a permanent smile that is about 3 inches away from a breakdown. This is low-key brilliant casting, because Bob isn't confident. He's deeply, profoundly insecure, just with a new body and a lot of guns. And for once, The Rock doesn't play The Rock. He plays a guy who wants to be The Rock. He's overly friendly, awkward. He laughs too much. He overshares about therapy and trauma, like a walking overshare thread. Dwayne leans into the cringe. Bob Stone feels like the kind of guy who still hears that gym shower laughter in his sleep, and is desperately trying to build a personality so strong it drowns it out. Kevin Hart as the straight man? The wildest twist is that Kevin Hart, who usually acts like a human energy drink, has to play the straight man. So you have Hart underreacting while The Rock overcommits to being a golden retriever with biceps. The humor works because Rock is not cool. He misreads signals. He's too intense about friendship. He idolizes Hart's character Calvin for being most likely to succeed in high school, even though Calvin hates where his life ended up. In one scene, Bob opens up about being bullied, and it's played with genuine earnestness, not undercut by a joke, not turned into a macho revenge fantasy. He just talks, like a therapy patient who is really proud of his healing progress and also knows 16 ways to kill you with a coaster. Dwayne pulls it off. He's funny, yes, but also legitimately sympathetic. You get the sense Bob is one bad day away from falling apart, and he's clinging to positivity like a lifeline. Again, this is not a gear studios let him use often. Most of the time he plays men who have never heard of therapy. Bob Stone? Bob has quotes from his therapist ready to go. The accidentally great trick Central Intelligence works more than it has any right to because Rock is willing to play emotionally off balance. He's not the cool one. The movie is in on the bit that he is kind of annoying. Letting The Rock be a socially awkward goofball with trauma is a million times more interesting than Guy, who is very good at punching skyscrapers. For 107 minutes, he gets to be weird, be clingy, be insecure, and still be capable at his job. So, we learned something important. When The Rock stops trying to be aspirational and leans into being emotionally messy, He's fun. He's human. And then, of course, they cash that chemistry in for other movies, where he's back to being the alpha and Kevin is back to screaming. Because why nourish complexity when you can print money? Now we have to talk about the cursed gem of his filmography, Pain and Gain, 2013. Look, is it a good movie? Debatable. Is it morally disturbing? Absolutely. Is The Rock incredible in it? Unfortunately, yes. He plays Paul Doyle, a composite character of several real guys, a born-again ex-con, steroid-inflated gym rat, and easily the most chaotic creature Michael Bay has ever pointed a camera at. And that is saying something. The vibe. Weaponized naivete plus cocaine Paul is a walking contradiction. He loves Jesus. He loves protein. He loves crime, badly. The man wants to be righteous, but also wants money, respect, and an endless pump. He keeps trying to reconcile Bible verses with assault, and Dwayne plays him like a giant toddler with a bench press PR. This is the least controlled Rock we've ever gotten. He's twitchy, emotional, easily manipulated. One minute he's praying over someone. The next he's snorting mountains of coke and fighting strippers' ex-boyfriends in a parking lot. The scene at the church. There's a scene where Paul goes to a church support group after one of his many, many screw-ups. He kneels. He cries. He declares how much he loves Jesus and how he wants to do better. This could have been a joke, and it is funny. But it also feels a little too real. You see an addict, not just a punchline. A guy who is desperate for structure, approval, and absolution, and who will immediately go back out and commit felonies because the world outside that church doesn't care about his redemption narrative. Rock gives Paul a weird, bruised sincerity. You believe that he really, truly wants to be good. You also believe that he has absolutely no idea what good is. The terrifying charm. This is one of the rare movies where The Rock is truly frightening. Not because he's strong. We know he's strong. We've seen him bench press a broken bridge. He's frightening because he's unpredictable. You never know if Paul is going to hug someone, help them, pray for them, or hit them with a weight plate. He laughs too big. He apologizes too hard. He believes in whatever the last person told him. Dwayne uses all his natural charisma and then shows how horrifying that charisma is when attached to someone with no internal compass. It's like all his franchise characters who recruit you into family. Except this time, the family is a gang of idiots doing extremely illegal things they're not smart enough to get away with. If Snitch is his soulful, grounded side, Pain and Gain is his chaotic, broken, dangerous side, the one Hollywood will absolutely never let out again because he's too valuable as a PG-13 hero. But the range is there. It's just heavily monitored for brand safety. By now, we've seen enough to establish a pattern. The rundown. Vulnerable, frustrated, takes damage, funny. Snitch, scared dad, morally conflicted, quiet suffering. Central intelligence. Weird, insecure, therapy-loving unicorn tank. Pain and Gain. Unhinged, addicted, disturbingly believable chaos. So why does it feel like we barely get any of that in his main career lane? Because somewhere along the way, Dwayne Johnson stopped being just an actor and became a risk-managed intellectual property. You can practically hear the studio memos. He must be relatable, but not too flawed. He can be funny, but never the butt of the joke for too long. He must be extremely strong, but still say "ah" around kids and puppies. He can be in danger, but not genuinely helpless. There are even famous rumors that in his big action movies, there are rules about how many hits he can take, when he can fall, how many visible injuries he can sustain, how often he can lose a fight. Is that literally written down like a Marvel power chart? Who knows? Does it absolutely feel like it? Oh yeah. And that's exactly the kind of environment where range goes to die. You cannot play. Crushed, humiliated, deeply wrong, profoundly weak. When your contract basically says your bicep has third act comeback rights. So all those interesting edges we saw in the rundown, Snitch, Central Intelligence, Pain and Gain, get sanded down into this ultra-polished 4-quadrant hero guy who always comes out on top. Audiences get what they expect. Studios get their ROI. kids get a consistent action figure. But the tiny, pretentious part of me that watched him beg a prosecutor and snitch, and cry in group in Pain and Gain, misses that other version. The version where The Rock wasn't always sure he'd win. Let's play pretend for a second. Imagine a world where Snitch did Marvel numbers, where critics said, "Hey, more of this, less of the earthquake punching." Imagine The Rock looking in the mirror and having this internal monologue. The actor finally finds out they didn't have range, but apparently I do, which is awkward because now I have to choose between my feelings and 10 franchise contracts. In that timeline, what happens? We probably get one custody battle drama where he plays a divorced dad who doesn't own a gun, a small indie about a bouncer dealing with aging where he only punches one guy and feels really bad about it, a prestige miniseries where he's a football coach confronting brain trauma and masculinity instead of just spiking Gatorade and shouting, "Let's go." Would those make less money than The Rock versus a burning building? Probably. Would they prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that he's got more going on than a charming skull and 5% body fat? Definitely. But we don't live in that timeline. We live in the one where his one truly soulful role, Snitch, and his few other accidental brilliance gigs are cult curiosities. Moments for film nerds to point at and say, "See? Right there. That micro-expression. That's acting." Meanwhile, the rest of the world buys tickets to watch him leap from a crane. Honestly, fair. We like our Rock loud, indestructible, and lightly inspirational. But every once in a while, when you catch Snitch or The Rundown or Central Intelligence on streaming at 2 a.m., and you see him do something as simple as hesitate before answering his son, you remember. He didn't just have one job. He didn't just have one gear. The actor finally finds out they didn't have range, but Dwayne, The Rock, Johnson, he did. He just bench pressed it back into the basement and went to make another billion.